Oh damn. This is not just this is something serious. Like God is convicting me to marry Sam. Welcome to the DMR, episode 4 for today, June 30th. It's a Tuesday. It's a good day. Tomorrow is Canada Day for those of us in Canada. It's good. So let's talk about the Mass. Before that, though, our sponsor for today are the Martyrs of Rome. That's right. It's the feast day of the first martyrs of Rome today. Perpetua, Felicity, all those people. They were very brave. They were very brave, and they understood their responsibility to uphold the faith. Faith in God, regardless of what was coming their way, which is something that people in today's readings could really learn from, right? And so they are a great sponsor for us to talk today about the conviction that God is trying to convey to us in these readings. So, Amos and Isaiah were a tag team duo. Amos came in and hit them with the hard, like, hey, you guys are being stupid. And then Isaiah would come in with like the, yeah, you're being stupid, but here's how you can fix it. As we saw with him and Hezekiah, how they had that relationship. He delivers a very, very hot take today on Israel's sinfulness, and he was basically saying, if you don't change, you're going to face the consequences. You know that saying, prepare to meet your maker? That's actually from today's readings. Israel, prepare to meet your God. As in, like, I'm coming. You better be ready. So he is delivering a very, very bombastic and deep conviction to Israel that they need to change their ways, which is good on its face. The reason that it can be a hard message to hear, is when God in the Old Testament especially tries to tell us to change our ways, he doesn't use the nicest language. He's telling us that we're going to face the consequences, that we are going to be shifted like wheat, that we're going to be hurt if we continue to break our covenant with God. And that's basically what he's saying. Like, listen, I'm telling you, the prophets have told you, I've sent these prophets to tell you what you need to do, and you're not doing it. And so eventually, the bill's going to come due, and there are going to be consequences for your actions. He's trying to rebuke them and also convict them. He's rebuking them, saying, look at all these evil things you are doing, and convicting them to be like, change your ways, or else bad things will happen, because I won't be there to protect you. And the reason that he's saying he won't be there to protect them is not because God won't be there, or that God doesn't want to protect them, but because he knows if they turn away from their faith in God to faith in other things, they're not going to ask for his help when trouble comes. And God never gives us something without us asking for it, right? He never comes to our aid unless we actually admit that we need him, which is something that's very hard for a lot of people to swallow their pride and admit that they need God's help, or anybody's help for that matter. I know that I've had times in my life where it was very hard for me to accept that I needed someone's help. But it's important to be able to ask for help. And the Israelites, he knows if they continue this path, they're not going to be able to ask for help. And that's what he's worried about. He's concerned that the Israelites aren't going to forget God. They're going to forget their God. And then when trouble comes, they're not going to pray to him for help in those tough times. He's trying to convict them. He's trying to say, hey, listen to me. I want to help you. Please let me help you. It's a sad predicament for God to be in. We hear in the psalm after this a message of, justice. Bring your justice, O God. Because you think about it, if there weren't any consequences to having bad actions, then there wouldn't be any justice for the people who did good things. And this is a very difficult contradiction that we deal with in Christianity, is that God is both just, but he's also merciful. Like, we want God to be justice. We want God to exact justice on the people who have done wrong and evil things. But at the same time, if we then judge those people for the actions that they've done, we're in essence also judging ourselves. If that person's actions are too sinful for him to be united with God, then we all would never have a relationship with God at all. And so it's very hard for us as Christians to go and say, that person did wrong, I want that person to face the consequences, without also bringing the consequences upon ourselves. And the person who's sending the message, the messenger usually gets shot. They say, like, don't shoot the messenger. Because the prophets often would get killed or exiled because they were bringing a message the Israelites didn't want to hear. The Israelites didn't want to hear all the things they were doing wrong. They wanted God to tell them all the things they were doing right. And that's dumb. Because how are you going to continue to be in a relationship with God if God doesn't also convict you when you're doing bad things? It's not a really a relationship then, is it? Imagine if you had a friendship where the person only ever told you the things you did right. That person's not really a friend if they can't convince you of the times that you're doing something wrong. All of this is setting up the stage for the gospel reading today. The gospel reading today is hard to read if you've ever had a time in your life where God was calling you to be faithful to him and you chose not to be. And I'm sure we can all think of those times where God asked us to do something and we doubted it, we second guessed it. In order for you to really understand Matthew's written to a Jewish mindset. And what that means is that sometimes he says things and doesn't really explain them because he assumes his audience is going to understand, but we're not Jewish, nor are we living 2,000 years ago, so we have no idea what the heck he's talking about. So for example, in this reading he's talking about Jesus being on the sea. Okay? And for us, we're like, okay, it's water. We don't have the same understanding of the ocean that people in Israel did. Because if you think about it, in Israel, there were a lot of fishermen. And their livelihood depended on the sea cooperating with them. And there was a big understanding that the sea, when it's peaceful, is of God. But when the sea turns and becomes very violent and very dangerous, it's because evil is at work. And the prophets who came before Jesus did lots of miracles to show that they were legit, but never did any of them ever do anything with water. If you think about it, like not like water like baptism, like John the Baptist, I'm talking like water, like there was a storm and they calmed it, or they went out and they did their speech while there was a storm outside. Never. Because the storms were evil. You didn't do that. You didn't associate yourself with evil. And yet Jesus is in this boat with them and he's just chilling. He's like, all right, it's a storm. Whatever. And this reading is interesting because the apostles with Jesus, they start to lose faith that Jesus is going to keep them safe. Because when they first go out, they're like, oh, we're Jesus. We're cool. We're chill. Nothing bad's going to happen to us. Jesus is here. He'll save us, of course. Then they start to lose faith as the storm gets worse. Jesus is still chilling. He's fast asleep in this big storm. Everyone's like, Jesus, man, save us. We're going to die. And his reasoning is the same as the reasoning in Amos. He's like, why would I let you die? You really think I brought you out here to die? Is your faith so little in me that you imagine that I would bring you out here just so you could perish? Really? That's how little you think of me. Who do you think that I am? Of course, this is a question that gets asked later, and Peter kind of gets a hint as to who Jesus is in this one scenario, because no prophet ever calmed the sea before. This guy's not just a prophet. This guy is Jesus. This guy's the Son of God. Who the heck is this guy? He's different than anything we've ever experienced before. He's different than any prophet we've ever experienced before. Whoa. Maybe we should think about this for a second. So, when I was preparing to marry Sam, I was dating Sam, and I had been praying for a little while about when the right time was for me to propose to Sam. I was on a retreat where two people that we knew, a couple that we knew, were getting engaged. They got engaged on that retreat. It was like a surprise and everything, was super happy. But when I was happy and I was like crying and I was, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful, immediately God was like, you are next. You better prepare. Your time is coming. It's like, oh damn. This is not just, this is something serious. Like, God is convicting me to marry Sam. Sam being my wife. And I didn't know what to do. At the time, I was only 20 years old. Like, I was still in school. There was a lot of confusion in me that it's like, oh, I thought I was going to wait till after. Like, you want me to get married, like, now? Like, soon? What? What are you talking about, God? What do you mean, get married? And so there was a lot of confusion in me and a lot of doubt. And for that whole weekend of that retreat, all I can think about was like, there's no way. There's no way. What do you, I was caught up in the moment. I was just imagining it. Like, I should be cautious. And I don't know if you've ever done this thing where you're like looking through the Bible for a Bible verse. So I found this Bible passage. I was doing like Bible roulette on my phone, where I was just like refreshing like verse of the day to see if I could find something that would help me in my confusion. And the verse that came up to this, and I feel like it's so appropriate for the reading from today, is from the letter of James, non-ironically. And in the first chapter, verse 5 to 8, it says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do." And when I read that, I was just I was at a loss for words. I didn't know what to say. I was confused and taken aback, but at least God got it through to my head finally. Like, I told you, get ready to be married. Did I mean not get? No, I didn't mean not get ready to be married. I meant get ready to be married. So you're gonna go and you're gonna do that because that is my will for you to be happy. Which was shocking, affirming, uplifting. It made me very happy to know that that was God's plan, but it also made me very upset with myself for being so blind or for being so ridden by doubt, by allowing the devil to get into my head and twist what I was supposed to do. And I looked foolish to myself. I look like a fool. So the thing that I want to put through is this. God is always doing two things with us. Our relationship with God depends on two essential things that he does. That is, he is convicting us to do the right thing, convicting us to follow his will. But then he always follows up with affirming us that we have done the right thing. And then he fulfills us, and he loves us, and he gives us all of these great things that he has promised us in his covenant with us. But first he convicts us. Then we follow through. And then he affirms us. He rewards us with his love, his guidance, his compassion, his mercy. And that's really how you overcome sin. You don't do it for yourself, you do it for God. And God affirms that. That's what you should be striving for in your life. And that's what I'd like to strive for in my life, in my marriage, and in all the things that I do. Thank you, and goodbye.